through seeing like as the price is going down and I look at like how much disposable cash I have to be able to actually put into the market, I'm really looking at like, even if this thing doesn't succeed in the way that we think it might be able to, and this is me being extra pessimistic, I still want to be exposed just in case it does take off. And then like all of it now at these price levels, we have real opportunities to get really large positions in the ecosystem, like specifically in HEX. Like 1 million HEX now is actually incredibly achievable. Like it is not out of the realm of possibility to get 1 million HEX. And that's like if you just wanted a long-term forever bet where it's like, once I hit 1 million HEX, I'm never putting another penny in again. And I'm just letting it ride, whether it goes to zero or goes to the moon. Well, that's enough coins where like you can actually make a really solid amount of money as it goes up versus like, say it's doom and gloom for a while, you give up and then you only accumulate like say 10 to 20,000 HEX at that point. Well, that's if you're wrong and the price goes up really higher, that might not be like that significant amount of money, and you might feel the need to FOMO in at higher prices. And so now, if you view your ability to accumulate in terms of like how much of the total ecosystem you're able to grab, we're getting to those price levels where you can get a really large amount of the supply for a sizable amount of the supply for not that much money. And these are really big opportunities in my mind to get that long-term forever position so that I have the exposure just in case this thing goes to the moon. And I personally think it will. Like I do think we're going to have all-time highs again. I do think HEX is going to be $1 one day. Things are, it's a little hard it's harder to see it now because the bias is so far to the downside. But because it's so far to the downside, now we're able to get those positions that when it goes up will be impossible to ever get again.
Is that the mountain that people, so when you say that, I mean, to me, it makes complete sense. Hey, these are the best price ever to accumulate and be able to get a position that would super unattainable before. I remember when the HEX price first went crazy down, when the Godwell sacked to the one project. I remember doing a stream and talking about, oh, wow, it's only like 7K to get, what was like 150 T shares or 100, something like that. Some ridiculously low price that if you've been around for a while, you're like, this is the most, I never thought I would ever be able to get this again. But the people who've been here for a while, especially after PulseChain launched, and you see, like, you look at your bag and you're like, wow, this used to be worth a lot more than it is now with just your PulseChain tag. So there's that. And then there's like, how do you get the new people coming in? Like maybe they just see, okay, this thing's controversial, founder, blah, blah, blah. But hey, it looks like a good product. Maybe I'll get a bag. Is it easier to sell to new people than the people who look around and say, I sacrificed money and now it's down a lot. I'm not feeling super motivated to go buy up all these discount prices I keep hearing about. Like how do you even talk to people who've been here for a while or new onboards like that?
Yeah. I think, well, for the people who've been around for a while, the way I usually describe it is like, the amount that your portfolio is worth now is how much it costs to double your stack, basically. And so it's like the lower it goes, obviously, the less money it takes to double your stack, which means you need less price go up to be able to break even. And so actually sometimes the best way to get out in some of these positions is to double down again lower, just so that the ability to break even is that you lower that bar even more. And then as the price goes down more, like, so this is something that Silver the Antidote talks about. And he is right, technically, in a lot of ways, where he actually doesn't like DCA because the price can do multiple 50% drops over time. And like we've seen that, like we went from 50 cents to 25 cents to what's that, like 17 and a half cents. No, not 17 and a half cents. 12 and a half cents, 6 cents, 3 cents, 1.5 cents. And then now we're at the seventh happening, basically, of the HEX price. Right. And
could have sold on a halving. Could have sold on a halving. Could have sold on a half.
Could have sold on a half. Right. So it's like technically you would have been better off never buying until like we're at this point because your money would have gone further. And that's why he likes to wait until he sees confirmation that things are going up. Now, my kind of thought against that, not against that, but like specifically for that is like Silver actually has a very, very specific skill set of blockchain analysis, where he's like one of the top people who's able to analyze the blockchain and utilize that to understand where the market's going. Most people, including myself, don't have that skill set. I like rely on someone like Silver to get me that information. So for someone like me, where I don't exactly have 100% view on like the way in which money is moving in the system outside of like what I see on Dex Screener, or what I see in the liquidity pools. I view DCA as an ability to bolster my bag to the next level, given where the current price level's at. So it's like at one point it was say like, okay, so at the run up from 3 cents to 50 cents, you may only have reasonably able to get 10,000 hex, or let's say 50,000 hex, just for hypothetical. If you're able to put a couple grand in, right? Well, now on the way back down, that 50,000 hex is much more achievable with like $200 to $500. And so now in my head, it's like, okay, let me throw a much less amount of money and then double up that bag. And then I level up to the level of like 100,000 hex. And then as time goes on, maybe I can level up based on the amount of cash flow and income that I have to 1 million hex. And it's like, how quickly, based on the price and my disposable income, can I get to that next echelon within the system? And then I have to ask myself, is it worth, basically, because in my mind, when I invest in crypto, that money's gone. I think of that money as like, doesn't essentially have already gone to zero, because I don't really plan on ever selling it. It's a bet that the system will win. And if the system hasn't won, then I'm just going to wait it out until that bet happens, until that scenario happens, right? This is what Johnny Chaos says. He's like, I have a price that I'm going to sell it at, and if it's not that price, I'm not going to sell it. Like, I'm going to wait for the market to give me the price I want. I'm not going to take what the market is giving me. He talks about that a lot, and I like it. But that's kind of the analysis that I do. How much disposable cash that I have that I can reasonably invest that I don't need for a long time, and then how efficient is that capital in terms of getting me to the next level in the system. So going from 50,000 hex to say 100,000 hex, then from 100,000 hex to 1 million, and then maybe 1 million to like 10 to 20 million, something like that. And then you can also view that in T-share twos. Like, okay, can I be a squid now? Can I be a dolphin? And then you can expand that outside of just hex and be like, okay, well, can I get this position in XYZ coin as well?
Do you think that, I mean, I still feel like DCA, I mean, just with that nuance of both silver and U2, it still seems like DCA is a move that could be the most profitable when you feel like there's been a bot, or it's already went down so much. Like DCAing, I guess, in a bull market versus bear market, is that when you kind of got to be careful? It's like, okay, if you're DCing in a bull market, or if you're DCing when you haven't seen, max pain, maybe that's the time to be careful.
Yeah. Well, I've always seen DCA as like a long-term accumulation strategy, right? So typically when DCA is talked about, it's like with like the S&P 500 index funds or like ETFs. And they basically describe how like, if you try to time tops and bottoms, you really don't do that well. And if you miss certain days in the market, like over 10 years, if you miss the 9 most profitable days, one second. Excuse me. If you miss the 9 most profitable days, you lose out on like 40 or 50% of the gains, right? And so the game becomes not trying to time the market, but just being in the market, right? Like time in the market, not timing the market, that classic saying. And so when you're DCAing, you're exposing yourself to those multiple 50% hits or haircuts over time, but you're accumulating for a multi-decade time period to hold, right? It's like long-term fundamental value accumulation versus short to medium term flips. Now in crypto, the volatility kind of puts a wrench in that, because like traditional markets, S&P 500 ETF index funds, they return like an average of like 4 to 7% a year over time. And so there aren't these crazy swings in volatility where you have so much more money than you've ever had, and then you have like almost no money in like the next couple months, right? So there's an element of like strategic profit taking and re-entering that comes along with the extreme volatility in crypto. But for a product like HEX, where most of us speculate on its long-term value on a span of up to 15 years, and I think a lot of us have stakes where we speculated that it'll be profitable to punt it out for 15 years. The DCA strategy is viable, but you have to be on that longer time frame, and you really aren't playing single bull markets or bear markets, single market cycles. You're putting bets on the long-term success of HEX as becoming an accepted store of value across crypto. Does that make sense?
And not dying. Yeah, it just gives me some things around DCA too. It just seems like, but in the stock and the crypto, in stock, I don't usually see things going like down, like 50% drop, 50% drop, 50% drop. So it seems like DCA is like people view it as a safer way to do it in the stocks. You know, of course, you can miss the 9 most profitable days and stuff, but still over time and before your retirement, it, you know, it's shown to be profitable. But for crypto, where they had the wild swings, it's almost like, I don't know. I think when I do DCA, I've been thinking about this too, like different strategies. I think I'm going to be very strategic with it, where it's kind of like, if I don't know, it's the super, if it's not right now, for example, if it's if we're already, you know, way past that, I think I would think differently about it than I would if we're in the middle of the bull or at the bottom, or, you know, SEC 17 more lawsuits, that kind of thing is different